Welcome back to the I Am Change podcast. As we gear up for season 4, let's take a moment to reflect on the incredible conversations from season 3 with Korede Aziz as the host. It was a season packed with inspiration, insights, and practical knowledge from changemakers across different fields. My name is Rafiat Akiwande, and I'm going to be your host for season 4. But before we get into what season 4 is going to be about, let's rewind and revisit some of those impactful moments from season 3. We kicked off season 3 with an exciting conversation with Fuad Lawal. He was the editor-in-chief at Zikoko at the time and is now the executive director of archiving. Korede spoke with him about content creation, journalism in Nigeria, and some of his remarkable projects like Pulse 36, where he traveled across all 36 states in Nigeria, and Jollof Radio, an 80-day journey exploring every mainland country across West Africa. It was an eye-opening discussion on storytelling and adventure. Here's a quick highlight from that episode.
On today's episode, we're speaking with Fuad Lawal, editor-in-chief at Zikoko.com, a big cabal company. Fuad studied industrial chemistry but ended up turning his writing hobby into a full-time career.
I think the most important thing is just self-reliance. Self-reliance doesn't mean you're an island. It means that you can get by yourself, especially when you have to do it for a living. This doesn't discount people who are deep experts, who just focus on video, who just focus on being better writers. It doesn't discount them at all.
Of course.
I tend to be a generalist, so I tend to dip my hand in a lot of things.
Well, what would you say was your biggest takeaway, your biggest lesson from that trip, and how has it impacted your career?
So from the entire experience of planning it, I think that was my single most important training in how to make things come alive. How do you take a thing from ideation to execution? So when I'm writing a story, it's ideation to execution, right? But I'm the master of that story, maybe with an editor. But like when it is a project, there are a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, a lot of interest, a lot of expectations. So that was my first experience with doing that at that scale. That was the biggest skills I picked up from there. The other thing, so personally, I tend not to have a lot of opinions in places where the consequence is permanence, in the sense that I don't have opinions of things because I realize that the more I traveled and experienced things, the less I knew about anything.
In fact, I was going to ask, how do you come up with great content? Let's say this question is for other writers and creatives who want to be like you. How do you come up with great content? Do you have a process? What influences your ideas and all that?
So, first of all, just so we are clear, right? Zikoko is an engine that has many moving parts, right? The creative engine. I'll be very honest. A lot of the time, I feel like an imposter at Zikoko because the creative process, most of the time, is completely independent of me. My managing editor, where she runs day to day at Zikoko. One process that we continue to evolve and take very seriously is how we hire. Like, we don't just put out applications most of the time. We hunt. For example, now, every time I stumble on someone doing good work creatively in Nigeria, I just start paying attention. So I'm constantly stalking media companies, Instagram, Twitter, just looking for people's work and seeing what people are doing. So that's one way. Second way is we have a process, a filtering process that I think it is impossible to scam that process because the process is created. Everybody we've hired through that process, we didn't regret it. It's less about, especially on the creative teams, it's less about their, I did this here, I did this there, and more about their perspective. Because you quickly realize that a lot of creativity is perspective. What's the difference between a random close-up photo and a good flat lay? They are both photos of the same, but perspective gives it new life. And perspective is how people stand out. So now the process, the creative process, first of all, it is brute force, very aggressive experiment. I believe in the concept of moving forward. X has 10 moving parts. One moving part works. You take that one moving part that works and push it forward to the next step, experiment. Now you have a, do you understand? And it
Yes.
is slowly evolving, and you just realize one day. That's how I think about. I think the internet makes it better because the internet forgives imperfection.
I hope this episode has been useful for you. Yes, it's great to have a plan for your life, but it's okay if you don't have it all figured out. Like Fuad, always be ready to grab the next opportunity that comes your way. Something grabs your interest, it's okay to explore.
If you are a content creator or an aspiring journalist, trust me, you don't want to miss the full episode that is still playing right now on the podcast. In episode 2, we talked about what it means to be an active citizen with Hamzat Lawal, the founder of Follow the Money. From standing up for human rights to fighting corruption, Hamzat shared what it takes to create real change, even in the face of opposition. His story was nothing short of inspiring. Here's a highlight from that episode.
What does it take to be a voice for the voiceless? To fight for the rights of others against all odds, even if it means stepping on the lion's tail? Are there special kinds of people suited to the work of activism? How can you use your voice to make a difference, no matter your reach and niche? We answer these questions and more in this episode of IAC Podcast, where we have a chat with Hamzat Lawal, or Hamzi, as many people call him. Hamzi is an activist who has successfully led grassroots campaigns in over 40 African countries. He is the founder of Follow the Money, a pan-African grassroots data-driven movement that empowers citizens to demand improved public service delivery and hold their elected government representatives accountable. He is also the chief executive of Connected Development Code, a local NGO he founded in 2012 dedicated to helping the continent achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. With over 9 years of experience in the non-profit sector, Hamzi has achieved so much in his work, making his mark as a voice not to be ignored. To kick off our conversation, I asked him about what drives him to do the work that he does.
I do this because I know that there are people out there, millions in numbers, in various grassroots communities in Nigeria and in Africa at large, who don't even know what Twitter or Facebook is. But these are people who always come out en masse to vote during election, that believe that government, when elected into office, would ensure they enjoy dividends of democracy, would ensure that when their children fall sick, or when they rush them to a primary healthcare center, there is vaccine, there is syringe, there's medical supply, there's a doctor, there's a nurse. When a woman is pregnant, there's a midwife there to attend to her. There are people who believe that their children are supposed to go to school, even if they can afford to send them, because they have elected government into office. So I do this to give hope. I do this to bring governance closer to the people and build trust among citizens and the elected officials. We have National Assembly members, that's House of Rep and Senate. We have the president. And these are all elected officials who have won the mandate through an electoral process to provide services and represent the collective interests of their constituents, which are the Nigerian people. So for everyone out there, it's about asking questions. It's about channeling your anger, your frustration towards demanding for good governance. And as you do that, first, I tell people you have to be responsible yourself and you have to hold yourself accountable before you can hold anyone to account. Because really, when you look at our public official, they're a reflection of what we have today. So if individually we are accountable, then it will be much more easier to elect people into office and build a community of accountability advocate. Because I tell government people when they choose to listen, no matter whatever beautiful policy you're bringing out for the citizen, if there is no trust, policy would fail.
Have you ever encountered maybe threats or anything? Because, questioning the government the way you do, especially in Nigeria, sometimes it may seem like it's a dangerous thing to do.
So in our work, we've been harassed, we've been intimidated using state resources. We've been threatened a couple of times, but we always tell ourselves if we don't do it, who will do it? And if we don't change Nigeria and starting now for good, who would come and change our country for us? So yes, we're always faced with that threats, with a lot of harassment and intimidation. But then again, I think for us, what keeps us going and why we just remain affirmative in what we do is the court of public opinion is always on our side. The people, the Nigerian people, supports the work that we do. And, we only get to live once. And for us, we want to be able to leave this world and people would remember us for our role, our contribution to nation building.
If there was one message you could send to every young Nigerian, what would that message be?
I would tell young people we're the solutions. Yes, we have so many problems in the country, but those problems are also opportunities. So we have to look at issues from an opportunistic perspective for us to contribute our quota towards nation building.
Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I am wise, so I am changing myself. Rumi. Our rulers come from the same pool of people as the ruled. The fight against corruption starts with me and you, then the next person, and the next, and then the next. Don't hold back. Ask data-informed questions. Don't give up because no one else can build the kind of nation you want to live in.
This episode with Hamzat was packed with motivation that can drive you to want to take action. So make sure you check it out. In episode 7, it was all about the money. Chidinma Okoli, who works in mergers and acquisition and investor relations at Moneypoint right now, joined Korede Aziz at the time to discuss financial literacy for young Nigerians. Whether you are a student, entrepreneur, freelancer, or working in a 9-to-5, this episode had practical tips to help you manage your finances better. Listen into a key takeaway from the episode.
What is the first thing I need to learn about personal finance? You mentioned saving. What else can I put into practice immediately?
I think the first thing that I would say you should learn is how to track your expenses. Because I feel like that is very underrated and people don't really take that seriously, but it's also super important. Tracking your expenses means that you know where your money is going to part-time. So, for instance, you can be spending so much money, let's say as a student, you can be spending so much money on, let's say, chips in school. Let's say you buy chips twice a day in school, 100 naira chips. Buy that every single day for 5 days a week. That's already 5H. In a month, that's already 2.5. That is money that can be put to good use if you have other important goals. So I'll say the first thing is to track your expenses. And it's very simple. You can do that by using an app or just even using a book, whatever you want. But just make it like a habit, part of like your night routine. So, okay, how much did I spend today? When you do that for a period of time, you're able to see the areas where you're overspending on, like the little areas that you might not even know that is not important. I can actually save some money. Because again, even when it comes to creating a budget, if you have been tracking your expenses in the past, it will kind of like also help you with creating that budget. And because then you have an idea of how you spend on a regular basis, so you can create like a much more realistic budget.
It's good that you mentioned that because first off, some of us have tried tracking our spending, but after some time, you just realize that you don't remember to do it anymore. So do you have any tips that you can share? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe any apps that make it easier to just track what you're spending?
When you first start, it's kind of like difficult. But I think for me, what I'm able to do over time, kind of like to make it like part of my night routine. So it's already a habit for me. But I think you can just use an app as well. So if you don't want to do the whole manual track, there's an app in Nigeria that does it for you like automatically. So the app is called Find Reach. Yeah. So what
It's
it is that they
called what?
when you Find Reach, FINDREACH.
Okay.
Find Reach or Reach app. Yes. So when you install the app, it asks you to give you access to your SMS. So the app will work best for you if most of your spending is like through your card. So once you let's say you swipe your card somewhere and then the debit alert enters your phone, the app will just read the alert and then put the alert on your app. Let's say if your alert says, okay, 10K was spent, on Uber in a day.
It's registered on the app immediately.
Exactly, yes. And say, okay,
Wow,
10K
that
for
makes
Uber.
it so easy. For those of us who struggle with saving as well, because saving is something else that you are big on, how do we go about it? Because not everybody earns so much of a salary, and sometimes it can seem like your expenses are so much that you don't even know where to start saving from. Other than tracking expenses, what other tips can you share that can help save better?
For savings, I think it's very critical to note that it's not really about how much you save when you start. It's more about the habits that you learn. Because as a young person, as a student, most likely you're not really earning a lot of money, right? But if you form the habit of saving, when you now start earning so much money, it's not hard. It's already ingrained in you to save money, right? People usually think that, oh, you have to like save so much money. You don't really have to. You can start saving in line with how much your earnings. Let's say your parents give you, let's say, 10K allowance every month. You can save 1K or even 500 naira. It's more about the habit. It's not really about how much you save, because when you now start making money and all that, so if you've not already built that skill or that muscle of saving, when you now start earning so much money, like you find it very hard. Second thing would also be like to save before you spend money, right? It's similar to the whole concept of paying yourself first. Most times you have nothing left to save because money will always go somewhere.
So the idea is saving first instead of saving last.
Exactly, yes. Save money first and then spend whatever is left. When you do that, you're forced to kind of like arrange your expenses to fit into what you have left. And then also, if you can, don't leave your savings in your regular checkings account. Put it somewhere where you don't really have access to it. Because if it's in your regular account, you'll be forced to spend it. Thankfully, like we have so many fintech apps these days in Nigeria that can help you do that as well. So
Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Don't you agree? If you would like to stay on top of your personal finances, you can follow Finlit Africa on Instagram. Their handle is at Finlit Africa, that is, at FINLIT Africa.
If financial freedom is one of your goals, you definitely need to check out the full episode titled Financial Literacy for Young Nigerians with Chidima Okoli on the podcast. You can find I Am Change podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other major podcast listening platform out there. One of the biggest questions young people ask is, how do I build a successful career? And in episode 8, Korede had an insightful conversation with Orifunke Lawal, a leadership and capacity building expert dedicated to helping graduates and undergraduates achieve long-term career success. She shared strategies on how young Nigerians can build sustainable careers in today's job market. Here's a snippet from that conversation.
Orifunke Lawal leads Lady with Balls, a community of ladies that helps women achieve their goals through necessary resources, procedures, and events. She's also the founder of the Graduate Mentor, a project aimed at helping fresh graduates gain the knowledge they need to survive and excel in the real world. Why did you decide to set out on this path? Why young graduates and personal development and all that?
Okay, because I got a job almost immediately after I left school. And then I saw a lot of my other mates who did not get their job. And I saw that they used to look at me as if I was privileged. But it wasn't like I was privileged. It wasn't like I had connections. It wasn't like I knew people in high places. The only thing that helped me was because I had started journey towards after school from when I was in 200 level. So I didn't exactly think about it that way. It didn't occur to me until after I left school that consciously training myself to be ready for after school was going to help in the long run. So I already knew from 200 level that I wasn't going to use my geography degree. So I already started thinking, okay, when I get out of school, what do I want to do? But a lot of people who were on my set didn't have plans for this. There was a lot they did not know. And because of that, they weren't getting the kind of jobs that they wanted. They were not positioning themselves very well for the kind of opportunities that they wanted. So that's why I started Graduate Mentor Africa, because I know that a lot of people who have come after me have lots of questions that they don't have answers to.
That's a really interesting story. I mean, from what you're saying, it seems that for anyone who wants to have a successful career, would you say that it's best to start planning from when you're in school, when you're in university?
Yes, it's best. You can start planning from the first year. This is best. Wow. So because when you start planning for where you want to get to after school, you know the kind of things you want to spend your energy on in school. You know the kind of volunteer opportunities you want to invest your time in. You know the kind of networks you want to build. You know the kind of organizations that you want to join, because all of these things contribute to the future.
For our listeners who are still in university or polytechnic or wherever right now, what are the major things you would say they should focus on in terms so that they can have successful careers later? What are the questions they should be asking themselves now or finding answers to right now?
Okay, so the first question to ask is, because you're studying, is this something you want to do in the long run? You want to be sincere with yourself at first. If this course that you are studying will give you the kind of opportunities that you want, if the opportunities there are well enough to accommodate you. Because a lot of times people are just in school, they are studying one course that before you find a company that needs your services or that needs the degree that you have gotten, it's going to take a while. But they just don't do anything. They just believe that okay, when they leave school, whoever will single them out and they'll get the job and all of that. But you know that this course, the chances are really slim. Then you know that, okay, I need to start having a backup plan. So the next thing you also want to consider is, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? And what are my threats? One mistake that fresh graduates make is that because they've not been planning beforehand, they get out of school and they are looking for just any job, whether it is something they are interested in or not, whether it is something they have the strength to do or not. So an understanding of your strength will give you an understanding of the opportunities that are available to you. And you're also going to be trying to get into fields that are not in your natural domain. And it's going to get hard, it's going to get frustrating because most of the time you may not make an headway. And you need to understand your weaknesses too. What are the things that you know that on a normal day could set you back?
The final episode of the season touched on a very important conversation: employability in Nigeria. Just recently, a trending tweet had sparked discussions about how companies struggle to find skilled talent despite receiving thousands of applications. In this particular episode, Korede sat down with Fola Aina to talk about what Nigerians can do to stand out in the job market. Here is a very powerful takeaway from that episode.
Have you ever heard anyone say Nigerian youths are unemployable? There's a good chance you have. Whether this is true or not isn't the question. Enough people believe it is for us not to pay attention. So if Nigerian youths are unemployable, even after having completed tertiary education, what then is the problem and how do we solve it? This week on I Am Change podcast, I am concerned with what skills, the top skills, Nigerian youths need, not just to be employable, but to succeed in their chosen careers. For answers, I chat with Fola Aino. One look at his tweets and you'll see that he is passionate about Nigeria's youth and how they can reach their full potential. Fola is an international security analyst and development policy expert, also the founder of Triola Aino Foundation, an NGO focused on youth development and partly on rural development. So the biggest question for us today, what can we do to ensure that Nigerian youths are employable? I want you to answer this question as if you're talking to two people. First person is the individual, the young person who wants to be employable, and then the second person is the employer.
Okay, so let's start with the young person, okay? And I'll say a couple of things. A lot of times young people, are right off from school, college, and then they are wondering, that they have gone to school to acquire an education, but then they still don't have jobs. The question may be that they are with a certificate, but beyond their certificate, they aren't employable. In other words, there's a big difference between having a degree and then translating that degree to employable skills, okay, that makes you employable, all right? Now, things that young people need to know are, I'll mention three critical things, and these critical things are interchangeable, okay? Beyond your degree in college, whether you have a master's, whether you have a PhD, I would advise, that you must always prioritize three things. One is your character, all right? Two is your competence, and three is your capacity, okay? Now, your degree would always get you to the front of the door, but what gives you access beyond the door is your character, okay? And a lot of young people, so I'm going to try to be very practical. So sometimes you see young people on social media these days, they put up all sorts of things on social media, and then they keep very questionable social media footprints. Mm-hmm. And then you are applying for a job, and then a potential employer goes online, checks up your social media footprints, and they see, what this person has said in their CV is not necessarily commensurate with the kind of character they have online. And that brings up a red flag. Okay. So young people, you want to be able to focus on your character beyond your degree. Okay. And also your competence. How reliable are you? Okay. Are you the kind of person that gets work done? Are you the kind of person that just takes work nonchalantly? What is your attitude when other things are entrusted to you that are not necessarily your own to look after? How do you treat it? What's your mentality towards work? Okay. And then, of course, the third thing is your capacity. So, yes, you have the degree, but do you have the skills required for the job? Two different things. And again, since I'm trying to be very practical, again, I'll say a few things I hope will be beneficial to young people. So sometimes as a young person, you may have applied for a job which you're very much interested in, but then you just finished college and that job says you should have 5 years experience. Okay. But then you're wondering, I just finished from college. So nobody ever told me that even after going through all that hard work in school, I'm going to have to be required to have 5 years of work experience. Now, what you can do at the end of each semester during your break, okay, through your holidays, to go volunteer at a place of work and acquire skills, okay, learning opportunities and build networks. And at the same time, that gets your foot in so that even when you finish your degree, you stand a greater chance of getting a job subsequently. Now, the advantage with this is that by the time you do this all across your 5 years of studying, is you realize that you might have amassed as much as 1.5 years, 18 months to 2 years of work experience on your CV just upon graduation.
Wow.
And a lot of young people don't consider this. Secondly, another thing you can also do is that there's the worry and the concern about the fact that these volunteering opportunities do not pay you. You don't necessarily have to go in Monday to Friday. You can negotiate with them and tell them, you know what, I can come in on Monday, I can come in on Wednesday, and I can come in on Friday. So that's 3 times in a week. But at the end of the day, if you do that for a month, you don't go on your CV and say, I volunteered or I worked in this place for a month or as an intern, but I was only going for 3 days. It just says on your CV, you work for a month. So any potential employer that sees it doesn't need to know the amount of days you put in. All they know was that you worked for 2 months, for 3 months, and you gained solid experience. If added together on your CV, amounts to a year, amounts to 2 years, amounts to 3 years. And when it comes to creation of jobs or the availability of jobs, I also like to say that it's not the prerogative of the government alone. And a lot of times we look to the government to create these jobs for us, but also the government needs to be able to work hand in hand with the private sector through public-private partnerships that can create jobs. But beyond all of this, nobody's going to come to a country and say they're planting a factory or an industry that will create jobs if there's insecurity, for instance, in that country. Mm-hmm. So the enabling environment needs to be created by the government. But beyond this, the organization itself needs to have certain structures and ethics, work ethics, okay, that makes it easy for people to thrive and desire to work in that kind of organization.
I know. With all of these high quality conversations from season 3, you're probably wondering, what more can they bring in season 4? Well, get ready. Because this new season, we are cutting through the noise to bring you fact-based discussions on society, politics, and economics. In an era of misinformation and fake news, we are committed to helping you understand the real issues that shape our world. Stay tuned. Follow us on social media at IamChangePod on Instagram and Twitter, and get ready for another season of I Am Change Podcast, where we break down social, political, and economic issues in a way that's clear, insightful, and free of misinformation. Till the very first episode of season 1 airs, I am Rafiat Akiwande and would love to hear from you. Which episode of season 3 did you truly enjoy? Share your thoughts with us on our social media handles at IamChangePod on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you so much for listening. Till we see you in the next episode.